Okay, 2025. Like, how would you even describe your 2025 for real? I don't know, in a couple words, like horrifying, downhill, kind of like But on the other hand, when it comes to reading, I'm very happy and content with my journey this year. I read 52 books. And I'm really proud of that, even though I really, really, really do want to emphasize I am in reading for quality stories. I'm not really wanting to push the idea of like being proud of how many books you can read in a year, because some of us don't have the time and energy to do the whole 100 books a year thing. It can just feel like it's not the point of reading. To me, the point of reading is to share and collect stories. And I think the normal person should not feel bad about if you didn't read a certain amount or if you didn't reach your goal. Like, just know if you read quality books and you liked what you read, like, that is the point. Anyway. Okay. Hi. Also, I was just consulting with my husband. He right there. He did say that he would consider a separation if you would not like and subscribe and potentially leave a comment. So if you could do that, it would really help my marriage. Like for real. Thank you. The first question that I had was related to like just what I wanted to share about my own reading journey this year and what I feel like provided a lot of value to me, which is what were new discoveries that were made this year. Okay, genres, ideas, authors, etc. This year, contemporary literary fiction. Why did that not sound correct? That does not sound correct. Became my favorite genre. I don't know. I used to think that thrillers were my favorite because they kept me entertained and they weren't boring. When you are recommended books for your specific taste, it just does something to my soul, like that I'm very inspired by. Second discovery is that not rating nonfiction is great. There's just something about when you read a memoir and it doesn't quite hit, being like, this was a 3, even though this was a story about how your mom died and had an effect on you. It didn't fulfill me. It just feels bad. So I just decided to stop doing it and I feel better as a person. Last one, waking up early to read. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. I felt like I was on this like hamster wheel of every day
waking up, going to work, being like, oh my god, I'm so drained as a creative human being of all of my energy, getting back from work, having no energy to read, scrolling on my phone, living on my phone,
getting ready for bed and rinse and repeat. I felt like I was not adding actual value to life recently. And so I think it was like late summer that I decided I'm gonna wake up an hour early just to have reading time. Most entertaining and informative nonfiction book. I might put some of the runner-ups on the screen so that you're not just like, literally, what did you read? So I guess I'll share some of the nominees. Maybe I've shared some of the nominees.
And the nominees are The Art Thief by Michael Finkel, The Stonewall Reader, collected by the New York Public Library, Ikigai by Francis Morales and Hector Garcia, Amanda Montell's Cultish, Lindsay Gibson's Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, Everything's Tuberculosis by John Green.
I did choose Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I have a tremendously difficult time with nonfiction that is giving information because it's like, wow, I was not that good in school. I don't retain a lot of information, and learning about tuberculosis, why would I care? He made me actually very interested and fascinated in the topic of tuberculosis and about how genuinely you can relate any kind of topic back to the idea of tuberculosis. What? John Green, I think, is just one of those very talented human beings where if he cares about anything, he will put his all into it and make it as interesting to him as it could be to other people. When it's like, why would I want to read about a book about tuberculosis? It had to be delivered from the right author. Next category, The One That Got Away. So The One That Got Away is simply just a book that you were not in the mood for, but is on your anticipated TV.
And the nominees are The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong, The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, and then Life is a Lazy Susan of Shit Sandwiches by Jennifer Walsh and Angie Sullivan.
This year I was highly anticipating Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. It got off my hold list and I just simply didn't have the energy to read it. I'm just in a silly, goofy mood, and I can't be serious. I really, ugh. And then also The Glass Castle. I also put that on hold. It went off hold. Everybody and they mama was telling me to read this book, okay? If you go to I think it was like my first little library hunt, everybody was telling me to do to read it. So I was like, sure, whatever, I'll read it. It was just not the time. Everybody I feel like was yelling at me to do it. But yeah, Emperor of Gladness is like, I know that's gonna hit, dude. I know that's going to be like a probably 4 or 5 rating for me. We'll just have to see. It's just like, I have to be in the mood to cry, I feel, you know? Next category. A book I was dying to DNF. We know the one. You know this book. You know, it's like a book that maybe it was highly anticipated, or somebody recommended it and you trusted the recommendation, and you get into it and you're like, oh, I actually don't care about this at all. I actually don't want to finish this. But for some reason you're like, okay, whatever, I'll just go ahead and do it. I don't often force myself to read a book because I just feel like life is just too short. I really do. Like Jack Edwards has mentioned that when he reads a book and he doesn't like it, he really likes to stick with it. I think this is also him just being like somebody who studied literature. I don't want to waste time on something I don't enjoy. It just makes me, is that bad? Is that bad?
This is kind of debatable because as much as you can enjoy the books that you choose, there are books that are meant to challenge you, and you're kind of meant to sit with something that is causing you conflict and strife. But for the most part, I'm picking out books that I don't have a hard time finishing.
But every once in a while, I will. So this is what I did. The book that I read that I really wanted to DNF and I didn't DNF is called No One Gets to Fall Apart by Sarah Labrie. I feel bad about this one because this was a book This book is about a strained family relationship where a daughter is speaking on her experience of her mother having, I think, dementia, maybe something else, is what basically, like, it was about watching her family member get like progressively more sick, and yet kind of having a drained, conflictuous, is that a word, relationship. And I felt really insensitive for putting it down, so I just kept reading. I was like, but I also wanted to know what happened at the end. But it wasn't like, it was one of those books where, okay, the plot, this is a non-fiction book based on somebody's real life. The plot. The story was enthralling enough, but the writing for me was not there. Also, the writing, I listened to it on audio. The lady's voice, I wasn't that big of a fan of. And when you are reading an audiobook and you don't really like the narrator, it's tough. It's actually kind of tough. Next, a book I'd rather die than let my grandma read. This one is going to be like, it doesn't have to be your actual grandma. Like, I don't have either of my grandmas. May they rest in peace, both of them. But this is like a book you'd rather die than let the most wholesome person in your life read it. You know what I mean? That would typically be your grandma.
And the nominees are Big Swiss by Jen Beacon, All Fours by Miranda July, Idlewild by James Frankie Thomas, Rejection by Tony Tulatamudi.
So the book that I chose, it was honestly, it's going to be 2 books. I'm just changing my thoughts. A lot of people read All Fours by Miranda July. I would never recommend that to my grandma or the most wholesome person in my life. Just because, I don't know, it's not that it was grotesque. It really wasn't that bad, but the sexual content, it was off color, it was a little weird, and so I kind of like, I don't want somebody who's pure and wholesome to be exposed to that, I guess. And then the next one is Idlewild by James Frankie Thomas. I even feel kind of bad that I really didn't emphasize on my go-to recommendation, my go-to book recommendation video, that like, this book is for mature audiences, okay? This is for mature audiences. Porn is talked about like a decent amount through the book. The author talks about how the character helped him to realize that's one of the ways that his identity was awakened. Okay. Don't read it if you are not down. Next category is disappointing due to the hype. This one, I think, had a couple runner-ups.
And the nominees are The Housemaid by Frida McFadden and None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell.
But the most disappointing book that I read this year is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Just gonna be honest, like, I see why people liked it, but I myself at the very end, a lot of people say like, oh, well, the end really changed everything for me. It didn't do anything for me at all, really. Like, it wasn't bad. It was not bad. It just wasn't enthralling in the way that hype made it up to be. Like, the hype, I swear, every time a book gets that much hype, like None of This Is True level hype, Fourth Wing level hype, The Rings level hype, Hunger Games level hype, I literally think I'm about to read the next Bible. I think I'm about to read the story of Jesus himself in a fantasy character. And then when I read a book that I feel like was generally more mid and that made me feel like, what? It takes me out, and it really doesn't make me trust the general public's opinion for real. For real. Like when you just have millions of people just being like, this is the book. It better be the book. It better be the book, but whatever. Anyway, next category, a book that would kill. Like, a book that would do so much better if it were just 50 pages shorter. I had Rejection by Tony Tulatamudi. Because Rejection was so good, dude. Rejection was so good. It had me on the edge of my seat for a lot of it. But then at the very end, there's this one character that just keeps going on and on about things I just could not care about. I just could not care about. And I was very quickly skimming, trying to get to the absolute end. And so, like, and you know, it sucks when you're really, really into a book and it drags, as opposed to, you know, it's like when you read a 3 and it's dragging, it's like, well, to be expected. I've been in this book for like 200 pages. What else? But when you read a book that like is a 5-star, but you're like, God, finish this. Something else. There's some sort of pain there that I can't really fully describe. Next is going to be a category I call A Little Too Close for Comfort.
Okay, so our one nominee is going to be Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. The other nominee, I don't even feel comfortable talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to get into anything, but if I have like a Patreon or like a book club, one day I will share, but I can't do it now.
Some people might be surprised that I found something a little bit too close for comfort. It was Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. If you grew up religious at all, well, not at all, because like if you grew up religious and you went to church like once a month, this is not going to hit you the way that it hit me as somebody, well, maybe it would, I don't know, as somebody who grew up as a missionary kid, pastor's kid, who now is reevaluating my relationship to faith, like really thinking about like what is really my faith, like what do I really going off on tangents I don't need to go on. Counting the Cost was very interesting because it is about Jill Duggar, who was a part of the Duggar family. Obviously, you probably know. I think it really highlighted the anxiety of being somebody with faith when you are questioning the things that were taught to you, the discomfort and kind of like the pain of unlearning that. Thinking about the deconstruction you needed to do is uncomfortable. And Counting the Cost really just focused on the idea of like the things that you're told, really think about them and really count the cost of like the way that they're weighing on you. And it was just a little bit too close for comfort because of all the things I just said. It really did change my life a little bit because I feel like it made me more confident in knowing that I don't have to feel like grand, horrible shame and anxiety for letting go of pieces of my faith that I thought were going to be everlasting, you know? Like, I still feel bad about how long it's been since I've been to church, but not bad enough to go back. Anyway, my favorite booktuber recommendation was Evening and Weekends by I think it's Oisin McKenna, or is it Oisin McKenna? I don't know. It was a phenomenal book. I loved reading evenings and weekends. It was one of those stories where you are invested for the characters, their growth, and the plot, which I feel like, even though, you know, that should be a given with a book, it sometimes isn't, kind of most of the times isn't. And I'm very heavy on introspection. If you want a book that's about introspection, this is one. Jack Edwards started it off in his book club. I haven't been paying attention to his book club because he's been recommending some things I just haven't been that interested in, but I'll pop back in when I see something that will enthrall me. I don't know. Is anybody else in Jack Edwards book club? I feel like somebody did mention that they read The Coin, and I was like, there's no way somebody's just reading The Coin unless they're in Jack's thing, right? I don't know. Let me know. Next category is book that should be adapted into a film. This one,
and the nominees are Big Swiss by Jen Beagin, The Good Son by Yoo Jung, and they've called this Exceptional by Prachi Gupta as a docuseries.
A nonfiction book that I feel like should be adapted into a film is They Have Called Us Exceptional, which would make a fantastic documentary. If you haven't heard my spiel on They Have Called Us Exceptional, it's essentially about the idea of why being a model minority is more harmful than provides benefit, told from a model minority's perspective. Prachi Gupta, such a phenomenal writer. Her story of dealing with exceptionalism and seeing the firsthand horrors. Like, you wouldn't think like, oh, being an exceptional person, that brings the horrors to it. Like, her book really, I feel like, was phenomenal at highlighting the things that have been horrible and hard on her life. It would be a phenomenal documentary, mainly because I really want people to just read this book, and I know people have a hard time reading, so like, let's just make it a documentary, and Netflix should produce it so everybody can know the harms and horrors, or I guess the negative sides effects of like being viewed as an exceptional human being. The fictional book that I want to be turned into a movie would be my cat wants so much. Christian, can you get her? It was the book that I read in one sitting, and throughout, you know, when you read a book and it's so descriptive that it's like I can actively see this playing out in my head, that is what this book was to me.
A son who wakes up in the morning, smells like these weird odors, realizes that his mom is dead, but he has no idea what happened the night before, and he's trying to figure out, like, oh, did I kill her? Did somebody come in and kill her? So he's trying to put the pieces together, and it takes the whole book. You have to read the book to find out what happens.
It would be a phenomenal movie. Even though I did only rate it at 3.25, I think it would be one of those books, one of those rare occasions where the movie would be better than the book itself. Okay. Best thriller of this year.
And the nominees are Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, Make Me Famous by Maud Ventura, The Perfect Divorce by Geneva Rose, Happiness Falls by Angie Kim, and Falling by TJ Newman.
I'm gonna be honest, I did not read that many good thrillers because I feel like I've been picking up a lot of popcorn thrillers that are popular, that people are talking about. But I would like to, for the next year, read more psychological thrillers with explicit social commentary. I think that's the key. Or maybe it's something else that I'm looking for. I feel like I just want a hard-hitting thriller. But anyway, so I haven't read that many great thrillers, but the best thriller that I read was Make Me Famous by Maud Ventura. It really, I feel like, highlighted the horror of being an ambitious woman who wants to be famous, because how much can I give away? I can't give away much, but there were so many things. Like, this is the person who we're reading. It's hard to decide, like, are they likable? Are they unlikable? Because what Maud has written, I think, came from a lot of her own thoughts and feelings, but just were exaggerated, like blown out. But you also, as a reader, are probably relating to it as well if you are any sort of like ambitious. And it honestly kind of made me uncomfortable because I was identifying with somebody who was like kind of sociopathic. Like, and that is the greatest horror of all, is to see yourself kind of within a monster. Because they start off as normal and relatable. In my opinion, I gave it a 4 out of 5, I think. My reading goals for 2026. I want to read more psychological thrillers, like I just said. Like, I want to read some heavy hitters, some good ones. You know what? Actually, Black Cake, I think, is up there for the types of stories that I do want to get more into. I want to wake up more early to read. That happened at the end of the summer, and then I've been kind of keeping up with it, but I don't do it every day. I want to write. I want to like actually get into writing, because doing all of this reading is really inspiring me. And I feel like there are a lot of things that I would like to be able to say, and one day potentially, this is like years. This is gonna take like years, maybe potentially write a book. Years, okay? I also want to try some more fantasy, because I do not really read any fantasy, and I feel like there's a lot of good social commentary in fantasy as well. Any fantasy book, I think you could link into having social commentary that does connect to what is going on in current events. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, whatever time of day it is, I hope you have a phenomenal, valuable morning, afternoon, or night.